Here's the list that I have 11 to 20. And Omalon, don't steal any of these backs from me, okay? Nick Chubb, as we mentioned yesterday in the mock, he went as RB16 to Marshall. I thought that was absolutely crazy value for Nick Chubb, a guy that has just been very, very consistent over the course of his career. And out of all of these names on this list, he is going to be the guy that has the fewest catches out of the backfield. He will. Like 20 grabs last season, 25 targets, only played 14 games, but Nick Chubb Kareem Hunt's still on that roster. Like, I have been to a Cleveland game where I saw Nick Chubb catch 5 passes in a game, and he can do that. But as long as Kareem Hunt is on the roster, you're always going to have a little bit of a weird feeling watching Nick Chubb play and watching this Browns offense, operate, especially in the red zone. Sometimes you see Kareem Hunt, sometimes on, third down, you see Kareem Hunt as well. And it ticks you off a little bit when you're a Nick Chubb owner, because he is one of the best runners in the game, maybe the best pure runner in the NFL. 5.2 yards per carry as a rookie, 5 in year 2, 5.6 in year 3. Last year, 5.5, 1,000 yards in every single. Can we call his rookie season 1,000 yards, 996 yards? I think we can. He's had 1,000 yards in every single season. And he is just a lock and loaded running back that is going to touch the ball 20 times. So, you see him fall down draft boards. RB16, I think, is crazy, crazy value. I still think he's a strong RB1. There's a couple guys on this list that we could call them risky picks. We could call them potential league winners, boom or bust guys. Alvin Kamara is a guy that we've seen finish as a top 5 running back multiple times over the course of his career. And now there's the thought and cloud over his head of a potential suspension. So this is why you're getting him as RB12. I've seen him fall to the 3rd round. I've seen him fall to the 4th round. When I did the Independence Day Invitational on Sirius XM, he was a 4th round pick. In our mock draft, he was not. He was a 2nd round pick. So I can't really give you anything concrete about what's going to happen with him in the future, if there's going to be a suspension or not. There's multiple reports that this suspension could happen next season. And this is why he is going where he's going. I'm fine, taking the risk on him if he's going to fall outside the top 12, but I do have some concerns overall with the offense. No Sean Payton. They ran the ball a lot. They didn't throw the ball really at all. Like, it wasn't Jameis Winston chucking it 40 plus times like his days in Tampa. He was throwing it sub 30 times per game. No Payton inside that offense. From a pace of play standpoint, they ran very, very slow. But they do have Michael Thomas coming back. The reports are pretty good, actually. That is looking good in practice. Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry. So they do have some weapons there. The offense could be pretty good if they let Jameis buck. Saquon is that other guy that's pretty risky at this point. Daily Handle was in here the other day calling him, injury prone. And I think Eric Young clapped back at you pretty aggressively that he felt like some of the injuries that Saquon has had over the past couple of years have been pretty fluky injuries. But there's no denying that he could be a league winner. Like, he could be a top 5 running back. I don't think anybody would be shocked if he finished as a top 5 running back. There have been some concerns injury-wise, certainly play calling, offensive line, but I think the Giants did okay in the draft. They revamped their offensive line. Brian Dable, did wonders with Josh Allen and company. And again, preseason and training camp, you don't want to get over the moon when certain things happen. You take it with a grain of salt, but seeing some highlights from the Giants training camp and guys in motion, I think that's awesome. I think that's great news for not only Saquon Barkley, for Daniel Jones, for everybody. They didn't run any motion. Tyler's a Giants fan. He knows it. He's sick of hearing me say this, that they ran a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 8 from their own 8 or 9 last year. There's no creativity at all in this offense. Saquon had a moment last year against the Saints where he was explosive through the air as a pass catcher and on the ground. And it looked a lot like Saquon in his first season as a rookie. I don't think he can get back to that season. But, man, the offensive line is better. There's going to be more creativity inside this offense. Jason Garrett just could not call any plays. So I am in on Saquon, taking the risk. I'm not fully in, like Eric said. He said he was completely in. He was going to try to take him in every single draft. I think that's kind of risky to do something like that. If you play in a couple leagues, sure. You play in 10 leagues, you're probably not taking Saquon in every single league. But he does have a league-winning upside. The other risky play on that list, Tyler, I think it's Travis Etienne. I think it is. I think Etienne is slightly risky as well. We didn't see him at all last season. We don't know what to expect. The Jags offensive line is not great. It sounds like James Robinson could be ready to go week 1, so there could be a bit of a timeshare there. Other names that are towards the bottom of that list that could be risky, David Montgomery. You're starting to hear reports about Montgomery, working with special teams. Like, I don't really like to hear that sort of stuff this time of the season, but there's no denying that David Montgomery has been, maybe slightly overrated when he came out of college. A lot of people ranked him as a top 10 running back, a top 12 running back. I was kind of in that, in that grouping as well. I thought he could be a low end or RB1 or a strong RB2, but looking at last year, pretty strong in terms of 13 games, just shy of 900 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. He got 42 passes. And I think that's the underlying thing that nobody really talks about in Montgomery's game. No Tariq Cohen. He hasn't been, healthy over the past couple seasons. I don't believe they really have a pass catching running back on the squad that's going to get sprinkled in. I like the prospect of Khalil Herbert as well. I think potentially he could be, we already saw what he could be if there was no Montgomery. He's a guy that's going to touch the ball 20 plus times in this offense, can carry the rock, can catch out of the backfield. He's got a quick first step and he's pretty explosive. And when you look at this Bears roster, they did nothing to help Justin Fields. Nothing. Pringle, come on, let's be real. Pringle, Velus Jones is like a 26-year-old wide receiver out of college. Is kind of like a gadget player. Darnell Mooney's the only guy. We all want Cole Kmet to take that step forward. He's one of 2 players with 60 grabs and no touchdowns. I expect him to find the end zone this year, but it's going to be a run-heavy offense. I think we'll see a lot of Montgomery, certainly going to see a lot of Fields. He averaged over 50 rushing yards per game over the last 7 games of the season last year, and you're going to get a lot of Herbert too. So I have some concerns with Montgomery, but for a guy that has caught 96 passes over the last 2 years, there's something to be said about that. There's certainly some value. Tyler, let's bring up this board one more time before we actually get into one of my favorites overall. I don't think we need to do Williams and Melvin Gordon again, but if people haven't been hanging out and watching the show, Tyler, if you have that board handy, don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have the Williams and Gordon split board handy, by all means, you can chuck that up. James Conner, I'm not in on. And in fact, I'm a little uneasy about this ranking. 3.7 yards per carry, not efficient at all, but he did rack up a ton of touchdowns, and he probably will be the goal line back if they've eased Kyler off a little bit in terms of running it in himself. He certainly can, but the rushing attempts were down last season significantly. The rushing yards went from like 800 to 400, and we saw Connor get a lot of work inside the red zone, and Darrell Williams brought in to just take that Chase Edmonds role. Zeke is on that list too. A down year for Zeke. Nobody wants Zeke. This time last year, he was getting drafted as a top 5 running back. He finished as RB6 in fantasy points per game. Standpoint. Overall, he's a top 15 running back. A down year, and he still had 1,000 yards, and he still had 10 touchdowns, and it's still a pretty good offense. The offensive line is not as great this year. They're missing some pieces in Dallas, but ultimately, Zeke is still going to eat, guys. I think he's actually a pretty good value. In the mock, he went in the 2nd round as like RB10. That's a little early. You don't have to take him that early. If you feel really strong about Zeke and you're picking early in the 1st, I guess you make that call like Daniel did. He knew that Zeke wouldn't be back to him by the time it came back in the 3rd round. But this is a guy that certainly could finish as a top 10 running back. Again, if you attack your draft with like wide receiver, Zeke could be there for you as RB1. But don't be fooled. Tony Pollard was more efficient than him. He was better between the tackles. He had more receiving yards on fewer targets and catches than Zeke. Zeke had a career low in terms of attempts and targets and catches. So the change in guard is happening. Jerry Jones can say whatever the heck he wants to say. We could buy that. I wouldn't fully. He's not calling all the shots in Dallas. He did sign Zeke significantly. He gave him that, 4th overall pick a few years ago and signed him to a lengthy contract. He doesn't want to look like a fool, so he's going to say things like that. But Tony Pollard has looked like the better running back over the past year and a half. So don't think that Pollard's not going to go away. Line up in the slot. They're missing a lot of guys, pass catching guys. He can line up in the slot. He can line out wide. They can line up 2 running back sets. It could certainly happen for him. But let's bring up that board one more time. I didn't really touch on Breece Hall. I think he can be a bell cow back when Michael Carter's in there. It's all about Cam Akers for me, guys. Cam Akers. I don't understand why this guy is falling to like the 4th round of drafts. I don't get it. And I think if I'm guessing why, there are some people that like Darrell Henderson. There really are. And when you stack up Akers and Henderson over the last 2 years and you look at some analytics and you look at like length of runs and things like that, you will see that Henderson actually kind of grades out pretty well, slightly better than Cam Akers. And we just heard Sean McVay say he's got 2 running backs. So you hear that, and then people will move Akers down their board or they'll move Henderson up their board. But let's be real about Darrell Henderson. This guy always has something going off. Soft tissue issues already has this season. Has had reports of soft muscle tissue issues. And to me, that is a big concern. They drafted him in the 3rd round. What did they do the following year, Sean McVay? Drafted Cam Akers in the 3rd round. Akers went down. He immediately brought in another back. After drafting a couple other backs last season, they brought in Sony Michel. Karen Williams is not a guy that you need to be concerned about coming in and stealing touches from Cam Akers or first down opportunities. He's just not that type of back. I don't really believe in him, and he's already suffered an injury as well. Cam Akers, I think, part of it is the efficiency, and it was not there last season. Looking at some of his games, 17 for 55, 24 for 48, 13 for 48, 13 for 21. Those are the 4 playoff games that he played last year. But keep in mind, those 4 defenses that he played, Arizona, Tampa, San Fran, Cincy, all top 10 defenses against the run last year. 67 carries. That, to me, is what's very telling. Coming off an Achilles injury, coming back as quick as he did, and Sean McVay Daily Handle loves to say this, says it all the time. Bright stage, bright lights on the big stage, under the bright lights. You certainly butchered that one, Daily Handle. But that's telling to me that this guy, off that Achilles injury, even though he wasn't efficient, 2.6 yards per carry on those 67 carries, he still got those carries and he got those touches. There was a game against Tampa where he fumbled the ball twice, and Akers got the ball back right away. Sean McVay did not care about that. He gave him the rock. 8 catches on 10 targets in those 4 playoff games as well. He's a guy that can catch 25 plus passes in this offense. The offensive line is still fine, even without Whitworth there. The offense is going to be good this season. The NFC is not great. The conference is not all that competitive. The division is Seattle's not that good anymore. San Fran's going to hang around. Arizona's got some issues as well. Cam Akers, if you just go back and look at the last 8 games from Cam Akers, and I'll wrap up on this note. The last 8 games for Akers, 4 from the regular season when he went off as a rookie towards the end of the season. He really took control of the offense. And then not including the game, I think it was week 18 where he came back from the Achilles injury and he had 5 carries for 3 yards. And he actually caught 3 passes on 3 targets. So he did have 8 touches in his first game. Let's cross that one out. Let's look at the 4 playoff games and the 4 regular season games from his rookie season. 19.1 carries, 21.1 touches, 2 catches per game. Let's put that over the course of a full season. Of course, things can happen. Injuries can happen. Of course, I guess he's a risk as well to have a bit of a setback, but everything looks good so far in camp. That's 358 touches, 324 carries. 324 carries would have been second in the NFL last season behind Jonathan Taylor. Now, Derrick Henry missed some time, and he was on pace for like 500 touches, so we can include Derrick Henry in there, not having the injury, him maybe finishing second in carries. But 3rd overall, Cam Akers in carries in this offense with the Rams, 34 grabs, absolutely sign me up. I have him ranked as RB13. He's going as RB18, RB19 in drafts. You can get him in the 4th round. Don't shy away from Cam Akers. The guy is a stud. McVay likes him. All the touches headed his way. And don't buy into the reports about Darrell Henderson. Forget it. If you're really that worried about Cam Akers, just draft them both. Then you have that Rams backfield, and away you go.